Okay, so just before we get going, I want to quickly introduce SCAF for those who haven't heard of it before. So SCAF is a research alliance of a broad range of stakeholders from across disciplines and sectors with the aim to innovate and drive impact on food systems in Scotland as well as beyond. So we've grown to about 750 members from over 250 unique organizations since the launch 2 years ago. And as part of our mission, our key question is on how we can make our food future one that is healthy and sustainable, but without jeopardizing culture and tradition. SCAF offers a variety of events and activities, including webinars, of which today is one in a series. We offer writing retreats and lots of networking opportunities, which are a great way to connect with people from across the Alliance to really spark those interdisciplinary and cross-sector collaborations. We also provide funding for mentorship and for events, and also for small research projects, which is what we are going to hear about today. That was already it for my very short introduction, and we're ready to move on to the talks. So we can look forward to hearing from Ana Peña del Valle from the James Hutton Institute and Una Markey from Loughborough University. I'll let the speakers introduce themselves in more detail themselves. So each speaker will have about 15 to 20 minutes to present, and then we'll have questions at the end. But feel free to drop your questions into the chat in the meantime, and we'll pick them up at the Q&A after. All right, so Anna, how about we start with you?
Thank you so much. First of all, my name is, as Laura said, my name is Ana Peña del Valle. I'm a MDT Research Fellow at the James Hutton Institute. And I thank you enormously to the Scottish Alliance for Food for inviting me and to present my work and the work of my colleagues in this space. So we are living in a time in which the consumption and production of fruit and vegetables is in decline. And that's why is the title of our presentation, Where Could Market Garden Expand? So in the UK, self-sufficiency in fruit and vegetable is at their lowest level at 53%, with a domestic supply of 3 million tons and a net import of 5.2 million. In Scotland, only 5% of fruit and vegetables are grown locally. Additionally, we are witnessing an unprecedented trends and shock which are weakening food supply chains globally. We believe market gardens have a role to play here. But what is a market garden? So we can say that it is a distinct form of a Scottish business type, defined by the practice of growing and selling a diverse variety of fruit and vegetables and flowers. Particularly, they use between 1 to 4 hectares of land. They grow from 30 to even 100 different types of vegetables and fruits, and sell their produce directly to their consumer. Also, they usually employ 2 to 4 members of staff. They also, on the other hand, they also have some barriers. They have a limited access to land, have limited access to subsidies and markets, and as it was said, these are big barriers to their expansion and consolidation. On the other hand, however, we have identified another important characteristic, which even a niche. So due to its size and the agroecological practices that they carry out, market gardeners could make use of more marginal land. And this opens up new opportunities. Well, with all this in mind, we wanted to contribute to build the evidence base for market gardens by exploring where market gardens could be upscaled in numbers to increase their input of fresh fruit and vegetables into Scotland's food system. We wanted to build a map showing suitable areas for upscaling in numbers of market gardens across Scotland. But we wanted this map to consider not only biophysical data, but also social, institutional, infrastructural data, and so on. For that, we gathered with a group of market gardeners, and we asked them what do they consider the most important factors that promote or constrain their establishment, consolidation, and replication. In practical terms, our proposal consisted in 3 steps. The first one was a participatory workshop carried out online to identify together drivers and barriers that support or constrain the upscaling and consolidation of market gardens across Scotland. The second step was to interpret the information from that workshop about drivers and barriers and translate it into a series of spatial explicit map layers, telling about suitable conditions attached to the areas of land that were most promising to set up a market garden. And finally, the third step was a second workshop online as well to discuss with the market gardeners different scenarios for their expansion and land availability. In the first workshop, which took place in in June last year, we used a participatory system technique to support participants to share their lived experience. The model was the model was built through along with the facilitator who helped to translate the conversation among market gardeners and with the into a logical formal model with causal loop diagrams that it was used to construct the bigger systemic model according to market garden perspectives. This can be better look in this way. So this is a system model generated during the first workshop. Oh, this is the first workshop. So by exploring the model, we could identify a series of interconnected drivers and barriers related to access to land, access to skilled labor, infrastructure, but also other type of information related to distance from affordable housing, the issue of long-term tenancies. We also see other aspects related to the support that market garden needed for expansion, support from government, support from other actors, as well as what they believe to be is the value that they provide to society. So we then use this information. We thought on identify proxies of these barriers and drivers and that could be linked to spatial categories. And from there, we identify a way that using these proxies to match key constraints derived from the workshop to available geospatial data that could be mapped as a GIS layer to represent social, environmental, and infrastructural suitability conditions for market gardens. So these layers were then being collated and entered in a GIS environment to produce the preliminary version of a modifiable suitability map. This map can be used to guide, or that was later used to guide, stakeholder deliberation according to the different scenarios. And here you can see the different scenarios that we were able to put together. I would like to remind you that as a point primary project, we counted with a very limited time, so we couldn't really expand the scenarios as much as we wanted, but well, that is another story. So with the maps, this is still a preliminary version. They need to be verified and ground truthed. So bear with us. So the maps were developed at Scotland-wide. However, in order to, we're going to just to focus on the example of the central belt in order to be able to show the scenarios with a better resolution. So starting from the identified niche for market gardens, that is the ability to potentially use marginal land, Here, we use the layer of available land in the categories 3.1, 3.2, and 4.1 from the land capability of agriculture map. This was our starting point. So at first glance, there is plenty of land for market garden expansion. And please note that we had to stretch the map a little bit horizontally to improve the view. But well, if you notice that it's a little bit deformed, it's because it was deliberate. It was on purpose. So, but well, when we add the layer of information related to where arable and grazing lands are located, we can see that how much these activities compete with potential areas for market gardens. Now, in the next scenario, well, we can see this. So no, the spaces in purple are the remnants of land marginal land 3.1 to 4.1 that is just left. Now, in the next scenario, we shall look at the location of woodland and forestry as the next barrier, including those that have been created in the last 30 years. When we change to it, it is important to keep in mind these two geographical areas in which there is still a good spread of areas for market gardens. So could you see what happened? So the dark green patches that are available, this area is now covered with trees. Light green patches are trees not competing with the available land. So you can see that in the southern area, there is comparatively fewer areas lost to trees, while in the northern area, a whole swathe of corridor from northeast to southeast is lost. Perthshire and Kinross and Stirlingshire have had some of the biggest increases in woodland creation over the last 30 years in Scotland. So woodlands, old and new, are a great competitor along with arable land uses to available land in this area. In the south, you can see, most of the woodland are in the lowland hills out with the arable areas. So now we can focus on these two areas again, and we have added the vulnerability to flooding or flooding risk layer that is a proxy for climate change risk. Vulnerability to flooding areas have been identified by SIPA as key areas for the development of planning for current and future flood risk areas. So could this layer also provide a proxy for which available land might be under more severe planning restrictions in the future? We can see. Well, so in this following scenario, we have then added the who owns Scotland layer. So remember that it is our proxy for what it might be harder to find along other tenancies for market gardens in the future. So given the competing land uses for some types of landowners have for their land, so we think that we thought that this would be more like a layer for exclusion. So let's have a look about this. What is the remnant available land in this attribute layer? So if we take the layer of flooding, let's take off the flooding, and we can see that the western half of the southern area, where there is possibly less large-scale land ownership, there is still a good number of areas available for land. And then the last scenario is that the one that we wanted to identify como the closeness of the distance of potential markets. And for this, we use the proxy of refill shops. And you can see that the green points are the location of market gardens, while the blue ones are the existing refill shops. So we applied a 15 kilometers radio we calculated how many market gardens would be in 15 kilometers radio, and we identified a certain coincidence in this respect. Nevertheless, after the second workshop, many market gardens suggested other proxies additional to refill shops to continue improving this area, the distance to markets. Well, now we continue with the conclusions of our work. So we ratify that suitability is not about only biophysical elements, biophysical data. It is also very important to take into consideration other aspects that they relate to social, to economical, to infrastructural components. Also, regulations are of big importance for the expansion and consolidation of market gardens. However, in this first stage, we could not find a suitable layer to use for our mapping. Also, other aspects that are of importance as a conclusion is the awareness that the awareness that market gardens really have a lot of competition and constraints for scaling and consolidation. So also the significance of having at a certain distance key services and infrastructure for them to be able to really expand and consolidate their business. And also, well, the competitive uses of land, it was also of great importance. And finally, there was a big awareness about the multiple roles of market gardens in relation not only for production, but also for flood management, habitat creation of biodiversity, for soil health, and also for the safeguard of value peri-urban land. And also for something that we have started to explore, that is como the shadow adaptive capacity for the Scottish food system. Here, the shadow adaptive capacity, we meant that capacity that is usually overlooked, but is a characteristic of the system that it emerged from the interaction between different elements of it. So we are in our way to exploring more about this capacity. Finally, well, map, we can see that according to the feedback from stakeholders, this is more like just a map. They found it useful as a platform for dialogue and exchange among not only them as a market gardens, but potentially among a wider group of diverse stakeholders. Also as a tool for market gardeners narrowing down their search for potential land, and also, and more importantly, perhaps as a tool for advocacy, for supporting the sector, market gardens as a sector that has an important contribution for the resilience of a Scotland food system. And with this, I just thank very much to all the market gardens and growers that participated in our study. Thank you very much to SCAF for their funding, and also, to the other members of the team that contributed to this project. Thank you very much. That's all.